Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley.
And today we are joined by MSU Mystical Life Coach, Madison Creel.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy you are here with us. I love your topic today. Let's dive straight into it. The evolution of conscious partnership. Madison, why did you pick this topic? And what really inspired you to go into this one?
So through this evolution of myself, I've kind of started this journey a couple years ago, but really dove in after taking the course at MSU. I realized that sometimes it's hard to really see your growth when you're just by yourself. And the most obvious space in my life where I have seen my growth and my expansion has been in my relationships, and specifically my romantic partnership. So I kind of wanted to go into some of the prior belief systems I had around what a relationship is and what it's supposed to do for you and the purpose of relationship. And then through my own growth, how my perspective has completely changed and also has brought a lot of insight and peace into my life, but also through relationship, you get to see a lot of the other sides of yourself that you may not have been able to see on your own. And then through this, while we're talking, I want to try and avoid saying things like love yourself, focus on you, you're all that you need, because I know that those terms can be hard to understand, or they can be pretty surface level for people who don't quite understand what that means. So I want to take those types of advice that people get and give examples and show what does that even look like.
Yeah, beautiful. I was just talking to someone that I was recording a podcast with. When I was single, I was like, oh, I'm like so powerful. I'm healing. Like I'm on it. And then enter in Danny Morley, and then bam, wow. They come in and they show you the corners of the darkest places that you're hiding so many aspects of you. And it wasn't until he really walked into my life where I truly feel like the next level came, because now it was like, it's time to see it all. There's nowhere to go but right here. And yes, you will go so far by yourself, but it's not only until, these relationships, especially your romantic relationship, comes in where it's going to require you to go deeper and deeper. And I think, I don't know, I can't speak for you, Danny, but I'm sure you feel like this as well.
Yeah, I mean, understanding that most of the relationship stuff, I can't say all, but most of the ones that I've had in the past have always been about me looking for something within them, and that's really what's caused the attraction. And the way that I've started to understand what I'm going through now is my soul was ready to be with a partner that's not going to show me or not going to make me feel whole, but it's going to show me where I'm not. It's really going to reflect back to me all of those parts that need love. And I'm looking forward to, in this podcast, we can dive into what that means for each of us and how we've done that. But really taking that step and allowing your own self to evolve, to know that, like, yeah, a relationship can be where you look for something in someone else, where you look for love, you show up codependently. It can be that, because I've had that, but ultimately, is that going to be healthy? Is that going to be toxic? Is it going to lead to you creating love in life, or is it going to lead to you creating some level of harm or toxicity, allowing your shadow self to show up? So finding a partner who is really ready to reflect, to hold the mirror, to shine it back, to stand in their power as well, and allow each of you to evolve independently, but also together. And it's something that Ellie and I are always trying to find the balance with. It's like, we need to do things independent, but we also need to do things together. And that whole idea of doing things together and not has really evolved for me, because in the past I just wanted to do everything together, and I thought that was the answer. Is like, me and my partner do it all, I do everything all together. Now I can recognize that was a lot of attachment, a lot of codependence, and it's really healthy to do things separated. But sometimes as partners, you want to be able to come together. There are certain healings you can do where it is going to be more beneficial and powerful to share that moment, that vulnerability together. And seeing that evolution in myself and my understanding of what it is to be in a relationship and a partnership has been huge. But it comes with, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we, Ellie? Like, everything comes at a consequence. Nothing is like perfect. So you're like, yeah, I want to do conscious partnership. I want to like try and be more aware of what I'm bringing to the table. But in that, it's extremely difficult. It's hard to actually be honest with what you're going through and work through your fears, work through your traumas.
Yeah.
And it means that it's not easy.
No.
Sometimes we talk about, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could just rewind 10 years and just go back to living a very third dimensional life? And, you know, I'll probably be back at a music festival, drinking, having a bit of fun in that kind of way. And now obviously things just change. You have fun in different ways, and you see relationships through different lenses. You understand them differently. And the more that you evolve as a soul, you know, you get to see that in your partnerships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned earlier that before you chose partnerships based on what you could find and then what they could do for you, right? And that was one of my first points is before, when I was looking for a partner, I would make a list, you know, and a lot of people say that, like, okay, that's their advice. Make a list and find the person that matches this list.
Yeah.
And that put a lot of frustration, control, expectation into these people that I would meet. And it caused a lot of irritation. Like, let's say I made this list and I found somebody and they weren't holding up to the standards that I created them for me to make me feel better. Right. So I had to understand that point. It's like, why do I need them to be in a good mood all the time? Why do I need them to fill these certain needs for me? And so that's that conscious piece of looking at yourself and letting your relationship show you where you are, what you're missing, and what wounds are showing up. What are you using this person for? And when I had this list, I would go back to almost like just irritation and frustration. Like, oh, why isn't, like, I'd see them showing up in the way that I didn't want them to. And then that put my power in their hands. So I was constantly being dependent on them showing up a certain way in order for me to feel good. And a couple ways I would handle this too would be either to shut down and like silently shame. So if they weren't doing what I wanted them to do, then I just would cut off my feelings completely. And then another side of this is I would see certain red flags and I wasn't as comfortable with myself. I didn't know myself enough to stand up for myself and know when to leave. So I'd see red flags and I would say, you know, oh, maybe like it just happened once or twice, or, you know, you'd see all these things that before I really went in and really knew and valued who I was, I couldn't really put my foot down and be like, you know what, this isn't okay. I wasn't able to establish those boundaries. So as I have evolved, the list has kind of gone away, and it's been more about how I am experiencing that relationship, what's coming up for me, and how I'm able to kind of see myself in the other person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, when they say they're your greatest mirrors, it's no joke. It's no joke. You know, Danny's constantly reflecting back to me, oh, these parts that I so don't want to feel. It's some of the deepest pain he reflects back to me. And, you know, I'm always talking about how much he triggers me, which is obviously like, I think people hear that, they think, okay, you don't have a good relationship. But it's like, if there's so much beauty in how much he triggers me, because it's there to really allow me to go in. And trust me, there are a lot of times where I just kind of sulk in it because I'm avoiding it because I don't want to feel it. But when I do take that time to really drop in and spend time with myself, like, man, there are so many layers that are revealed. There are so many moments of power and love. There was this the other night, Danny was moving through something, and it was all about finding love within himself. And he was weeping and crying. And while I'm, you know, guiding through this, I decided to just drop in for me too, because the words that I was saying to him, I wanted to feel the vibration of it. And so I was saying to him things like, it's you that you're looking for. You don't need anybody else. And really understanding that, right? Just so like you said, like, it's easy for us to say, love yourself. Yes, it's abstract. But when you can feel into the energy of the words, I started going into this beautiful space of really feeling that. And because he was in the spaciousness of his love, you know, we were in this like beautiful kind of like spiral of self-love that was intertwining between us. And I just felt so much light. And it was that moment where I just felt so much power, because for me, the wounded part of me is that I want him to be my everything. And I want him to save me, and I want him to love me so much, because my inner child is afraid to really discover what it means to love oneself, because all it ever wanted was mom and dad to just reach out and let her know that like she's safe and she's good and we love you unconditionally. And that's what I seek within him. And so those are the moments, I think, in partnership where you really begin to understand what it means to connect and what it means to dive deeper into, because we're redefining what love is to us, right? We all have been fed a lie, and we think that that's what love is. It's he's my other half. He makes me whole. He completes me. And it's now understanding that all of that has been one big fib, and discovering that. Yeah.
It's like just power. It's powerlessness, you know. Yep. It's like giving your power away to this person who you don't have any control over, and letting them dictate how you feel all the time. And that was another thing that I kind of struggled with initially. I wanted my partner to be happy all the time, because when they were in a bad mood, it made me feel not loved. And I would take it personally. You know, it means like, okay, it's my job to make you happy. And if I'm not doing that, then I am faced to feel what's inside of me. And the conscious piece here is taking a look at what the negative feelings that you're feeling, or these wounds that are showing up, and not just masking them, because that would be unconscious, right? So ignoring what's coming up and just masking with, let me just turn the TV on, let me go shopping, my partners and I are fighting and it's making me feel not valued, it's making me feel not seen, it's making me feel scared. the unconscious way of doing a partnership is ignoring those feelings. And I think sometimes people need a little bit more of a definition of like conscious, unconscious, because that term can be overused sometimes. Bringing awareness to it and not letting it just go, because a lot of people just say like, let it go, move on. That's another way of adapting and avoiding. So seeing what their response does to you and not trying to control their response so it doesn't bring stuff up in you. And then obviously once you realize what that's bringing up in you, going in and being present with it, validating yourself, being everything that you are expecting your partner to be for you, and bringing love to yourself, and all the things that we work through as coaches and as clients for Masters of Self University, taking your power back. And it's kind of like scary, because when you take your power back, you look back on your relationship and you really see it for what it is. Like, what do you offer me that I cannot offer myself? Once I am whole and complete, once I have worked through these wounds, that this person has brought up, and am able to access the love within myself a lot easier, what is this person offering me that I can't get from myself? And then you start to see your relationship in a whole new light. Maybe this isn't the person for you. Maybe you were only with them because you needed them to make you feel less anxiety, separation anxiety. Maybe you needed them to make you feel loved. Maybe you needed them to see you and validate you and all these things that you never received as a child. But really, that's just your child showing up in your relationship. So through this process, it's just like, once you take it to that level of trying to be conscious about it, it has nothing to do with the other person and wanting them to grow or change or be different. It's, what is this person bringing up in you that you can heal? And then at that point, I mean, what is relationship anyway?
Yeah, you definitely can get,
it redefines.
You can get lost going down that rabbit hole of what is a relationship and what is love. And it's definitely something that I've had to really like debate and sit with, because the more that you do gain your power, the more that you start finding yourself, understanding that, oh, this whole time I've been looking for this thing from them, and I can learn through the skills. And this is what we teach at Masters of Self University, how to energetically go within yourself and find that part of you that you're looking for them, whether that is validation, attention, approval, feeling safety, connection, security, real big one, secure. Oh, they make me feel very secure. I used to be super insecure. I need them. If I'm with them, then I'm good, because I've got this security of love. I'm going to get that from them. But I just want to make a quick distinction, because like Ellie and I have made a lot of videos on conscious partnership and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up realizing like it is this constant evolution. So we can use the term like conscious, but we're only conscious of what we're conscious, right? We're not conscious of our unconscious, otherwise it wouldn't be our unconscious. So even like this idea of like being a conscious partner, it's like you've still got all this unconscious programming that you have no idea is there yet, unless you're fully healed and whole. So there is a place where I feel like two souls embark on this mission. I'm like, okay, we're ready to do this for our own and each other's growth. We're ready to start reflecting. And what does it take to reflect, to hold that mirror up, to be a conscious partner? It takes power. It takes a certain element of you as a divine being stepping into your power. And one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn is being okay with holding someone, namely Ellie, in their pain, or not holding, because that's the wrong word, but being the spaciousness to allow them to move through whatever they're moving through. Whenever we go through a conflict, it's super easy to just want to bring something up and then not deal with the emotion that gets triggered in the conflict. So you just want to get back to like where it's peaceful again, and skip over the fact that no, they're actually in pain the way that they're showing up right now. And being able to be centered, secure, and grounded within yourself as you have these more difficult conversations. You know, Ellie and I, just this last couple of weeks, we started, you know, really getting deep with understanding how we are searching for this connection from each other, namely me looking at her saying like, I need you to connect. I need you to be open, because ultimately I wasn't finding that within, and I was pointing the finger and, you know, doing all of the projection. And what it takes is holding up that mirror once you found enough power of saying, you're putting that on me. Like, I understand that you want this, and yes, I'm going to look within myself, but you, as a partner, you need to also have enough power to be able to say, I will look at that, but look at how you're showing up right now. Are you in your power when you're, you know, asking someone else, I need you to open? That's not
right.
openness.
It's just kind of taking account, right? Taking into account where you're coming from. Because I've had a handful of times where there's been something really on my heart that I've wanted to bring up to my partner. And it's more like, I need him to be this. I need you to change. I need something different. And it's not to say that every single person is right for you and you just need to be good within yourself and you be fine with anybody. Obviously, there's certain preferences that you might like for a partner. But I knew that I was coming from a wounded place, because it felt, the energy behind what I wanted to talk about felt really almost empty. Like I felt out of touch with myself. And then it wasn't until I took a couple days to myself and really was able to drop in and be with what it was that I was bringing up. And I felt like I was a much better, it wasn't like a needy place. It wasn't like a place of, I have expectations for you. It was just, hey, this is where I'm at. I love you and accept you for where you are. Though I have preferences for how deeply I want to connect with you. And it's okay where you're at. And I love and respect where you are. I just want you to know, like, it's going to be hard for me to connect with you when you're doing these things, or when you are disconnected, or whatever it happens to be. So it was less of like, I need you to be, I need you to connect with me. I need you to open. I need you to be in the spot. And more just like, I love where you're at, because this is your journey. We all have separate journeys, right? We're not there to like force each other into growth, even though a lot of times that's a big program that I run, as I want my partner, pushing my partner to be somewhere more, coming from like, I want you to be more evolved so I can have that deeper connection with you. Why? Because I'm craving that inside, because I don't have that deeper connection within myself. But once I was able to step aside and really feel like I was coming from a good spot, I kind of saw him in a different light. And even though I might have preferences and I would love to experience that deeper connection, it's almost just like separating, detaching from that expectation, and feeling into what energy are you coming from when you're making a request, or when you want to bring something serious up to your partner that you want to talk about. Is it coming from a place of lack and neediness, or is it something that when you're coming from wholeness? And that's a game changer, because they can feel that energy. And I've had conversations with him before where I've come from a place of lack, and he can feel it. It's like like an unconscious feeling, or he's not really aware of it, but he knows subconsciously. And he puts up walls or gets defensive. But when I come from an open-hearted place, it's almost like impossible to not receive it. If that makes sense. You could say the same words, but be coming from a different place.
Yep.
And it will land a whole lot differently.
Energies don't lie.
No.
Energies do not lie. You can use your words in whatever way. But if you are coming from a certain energy, another being, whether they're aware of it or not, will feel that. They will feel that. You could say something super loving that might seem super loving, but if you're coming from a program of inferiority or judgment or whatever, they are going to feel that. And they might not clock it. They might not see it like right away. But you will see, if you're aware, you'll see their behavior and their response. As you said, as you come from lack, you're feeling his closeness. And whether or not he's aware of it or not doesn't matter. It's the energy. We communicate through energies. Words are energy. Thoughts are energy. Emotion is energy. Everything is energy. And the energy doesn't lie. So yeah, he's for sure, conscious or not conscious of what he's experiencing, aware or not aware, he's feeling that. Definitely. And that, me and Ellie have just worked through something around this. She's saying something to me. She's saying one thing, but I could feel that it wasn't coming from her heart. It felt like it was coming from her mind. Do you want to share that at all, Ellie?
I mean, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Danny and I, we went through a really, really big challenge. We moved into a new home together, and as soon as we walked into the home, his energy and everything just dropped. And he went from being so vibrant, which he always is, and so lively and energetic, to just feeling hollow and empty. And he kept coming to me and kept saying to me, I don't know if this is the right decision. I can't feel you. We're making a huge commitment right now, and I don't know if this is going anywhere. Like everything you don't want to hear from your partner, I was sitting there having to take all of that in. And he's sharing with me that he doesn't feel like I'm open and he doesn't feel me. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to make him see what I feel inside for him, right? Which is, I care so much. If you knew how much I cared, you wouldn't ever be questioning this. And even though I was saying all of these things, it wasn't hitting him. He wasn't believing any of it because the energy was coming from closeness. And I was saying things like, well, if you don't want to live with me, that's fine. You can go find another place. We can break the lease. Like, I'm good. Don't worry. Like, I was saying all these things that I actually wasn't feeling. But because I'm so closed, because I have wall after wall after wall around my heart, I couldn't possibly really say what I really felt. And so after like the fourth day of conversations, we got to a point where he approached me and we were having the same conversation, and I'm telling him like, do what you got to do, whatever you want to do, like blah, blah, blah. He said something to me and I said back to him, I'm just trying to be tough. And as soon as I said it, he was like, why are you trying to be tough? And then I could hear my mind going, why'd you say that? Like, you're revealing too much. Like you shouldn't have said that word. And then he goes, I don't want you to be tough. What do you feel? And as soon as he said it in that way, I realized it was permission for me to open. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I'm so scared to lose you. I don't want to lose you. I want to live here with you and I want to be with you. And I felt every wall just shatter. And I just started bawling, and he connected with me immediately. And we had this like such a huge moment of just depth between us. And we both just started crying in each other's arms. And I was like, oh, this is what he means. Like, I'm trying so hard to be tough and I'm strong. And let me tell you like what I think you want to hear, which is like, yeah, go, move on, be without me. But when in actuality, my heart is weeping My heart is saying, please don't leave. Like, I don't want you to go. I want you to stay here. And that's what he wanted to hear from me. And all this time, I thought that was weakness because I'm so afraid to be seen in all my vulnerability. I'm so afraid to actually say what I feel, because if I actually say what I feel, you may leave and you may hurt me and you may walk away, whatever it may be. So I've convinced myself my whole life, it's safer to be closed. It's safer to not really reveal your cards, to show what you really feel. But this man is a master of subtle energies, you know? And so he's reading in between all the lines, and he's looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm strong. And it's like, no. And then the moment I let all of that really break was the moment that we had this beautiful, beautiful moment together.
Yeah, and we'll break that whole, we're going to do a whole separate podcast where we break that down in depth. So that'll be coming following this one. But yeah, I just wanted to add from in that moment, then that was it. We both opened. What I didn't realize that I was doing in that moment, and I did later down the line, was that I was just showing up in this need. I needed her to open because I wasn't open. And the program that I was running, which we'll get into in another one, is that I was showing up needing her to open because I could only feel love from another person. I couldn't feel it I couldn't open myself. But if she was to be open, it would allow the energies to flow. And this is still a version of where I'm showing up codependent, and something that I've had to really go into and will continue to do. So that is a perfect example of exactly what you're talking about, Madison. Me showing up in neediness. But on the other side of it, here is a beautiful example of how sometimes when we do bring these things up, we are projecting. I was projecting my neediness onto her, but it doesn't mean that what I was saying was wrong, because she was closed. Ellie, you were closed at that time, you know, and that's still true, but it's not her responsibility to open for me. That's her own path. So this is where it's like, it's not clear cut of like, whatever you bring to the table is just like, you bring it up and you put it in their face and then you walk away and do your own work. It's like, yes, sometimes you have to bring it up between your partners and talk about it. And sometimes it's going to be true, like in this case. And sometimes it may not. And what you're feeling just might be a full projection of your own self. And that's where exactly what I was talking about earlier. In a partnership, we have to be powerful enough to hold up that mirror if our partner is projecting onto us, and finding that discernment is really difficult. And the easiest way is to just remain open. And when someone, a partner, comes to you and says, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm feeling, do you think it's true? Like both parties being open, I guess both partners always being open. Yeah, it may be true. Let me sit with it and let me really feel into this, because it might be, I might be being closed right now too. And that,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll just finish. That openness allows you both to see what's really going on.
And, you know, Madison, maybe you can talk on this too, but when he was saying like, I need you to open, I was so much in my weakness. I didn't even see it was a projection. Because I was so weak, I was like, I need to hurry up and open or this man's going to leave me, you know? And again, that's abandonment of self. I was doing it for him and not doing it for me. And it wasn't until he was like, I was projecting on you, where I was like, oh my God, you were. But I was so in fear that I couldn't even see that.
But the thing is, it doesn't matter, because you were able to see what came up in you. It doesn't matter whether Danny was projecting or not, because a lot of times you're constantly trying to like make the other person see. You want them to see how they need to be different. And whether you're coming from a wounded place or whether you're coming from a whole place, like what you say and how they respond doesn't matter. It's all about what does it bring up in you, and taking the responsibility and finding that discernment. The discernment is something that I've been struggling with, because one of my big programs is self-doubt. So even though I might feel into something, I'm afraid to say it because I doubt myself. I'm also afraid of, so like in Danny's example, he was able to come up to Ellie and say these things. I have a really hard time speaking up because I am worried about the other person's response or reaction. If they
trust me, that was me too. Oh my God, it took so much. You have no idea.
Well, I mean, the thing, but you just do it, and then after you say it, like what I really appreciate, I think we've talked about this before, after you bring up what's on your heart, and then depending on how they respond, it doesn't matter. They're going to have the response. They could take it in wholeheartedly, or they could project, or they could get defensive, or they could get angry. Then it's not about what they do. It's about, what does that make you feel? So I get really triggered when people are angry and defensive, and when they don't take what I have to say into consideration. So do I point the finger and say, you're projecting, you're wrong, you're this? Or do I point the finger back at me and say, okay, why am I doubting myself? Why am I shriveling up to this defensive, closed off state? And seeing what's underneath the surface there, because there's a lot of fear there. Though if I was truly healed, I wouldn't be bothered at all, no matter how they would respond, whether they took what I said and really internalized it and were able to do some great deep inner work on themselves, or whether they got pissed off and stopped talking to me for 2 days. If I was truly completely whole myself, none of that would bother me, because it's not my job to make this person the person of my dreams, or whatever my dream is. It's my job to make myself that, and it takes an insane amount of pressure off the relationship. I noticed when I was more in the controlling, running a lot of control programs, that I almost didn't give my partner space to see what was going on. Constantly like nagging and like, why aren't you doing this? Why are you showing up in this way? All these things. And something like energetically, this is what I noticed, was that the more I was like silent shaming and rolling my eyes and kind of nagging him for all these behaviors that I was getting fed up with, the more walls he put up, because he felt judged. He felt not seen. He felt like I didn't care. He felt, all these things. So the more walls he put up, the further away I was even getting from my point being made, if that makes sense, for him seeing the way he was showing up. And so once I was able to step away, not in a way of like, I'm not talking to you anymore, because that's from woundedness, but once I was able to come from a place of wholeness and just respect where he was at, he had more room to kind of reevaluate his life from what his goals are, where he wants to be in his life, when he doesn't have somebody about to point a finger every time he turns around. And it's not like you shouldn't have to force somebody into anything. Like it's all about your own journey and kind of taking that initiative and responsibility, and being there, as a partner, to support if they want support, but not, shoving your support down their throat when they're not asking for it. Because there's a sense of like trust and safety that I feel like is at the basis that needs to be established, especially in a conscious partnership, to feel open, because it takes two. Like Ellie was saying, you need to feel safe to open up, so creating that space, but also not having those expectations. That was like that was a pretty big growth point for me too.
I want to just mention something so no one misunderstands that teaching. When Madison is saying it doesn't matter once you bring something up, it obviously does matter if they are getting physically violent with you. These are extremes, because I can imagine someone hearing this, what, you just bring something up and someone gets angry and attack, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're attacking me. Of course it matters. Yes. We're not talking about this toxic, destructive behavioral patterns that can get lead from someone being activated in a particular wound. So when she's bringing up the fact that, a partner might be getting angry and it doesn't matter what he does, she means more in the she can honor him at where he's at. Obviously, if you're in a partnership and you're bringing things up powerfully and it's resulting in any kind of physical harm, that is not okay, and it does matter. I just want to make sure that anyone listening, we are on that page. We're not saying that no one can do no wrong or no harm. That does happen in relationships. Madison, I know you have like a big list of things you wanted to touch on. Do you want to pick out another one that you've got on there?
Yeah. And that kind of segues actually into a really, really important one is setting boundaries, which has not been my forte in the past. And that's another kind of topic that is hard to a lot of people just kind of see on the surface level, and it's hard to make sense of. Like, what does it even mean to set boundaries? And a lot of this too, I wasn't able to set a boundary. I wasn't able to kind of place value myself enough to say no, or to not overextend myself, because I wasn't whole within myself. So something that would constantly come up for me was I would kind of get walked over a lot. I would kind of just be every single thing that person needed me to be, and put up with the behaviors and put up with everything else, because I was afraid of not being loved. And I had to learn that it's okay if I set a boundary, if that person leaves, if that person takes it the wrong way, or really, I had to learn who I was. This was kind of like the first phase of conscious relationship and conscious partnership. I had to learn, what do I actually value? Like, who am I? What beliefs do I have about relationships that were passed on to me that don't really settle with me anymore? Getting a solid sense of who you are, so then you can draw a line around who you are, and it's not as wishy-washy. I was so wishy-washy for a long time, and that came into showed up in like seeing red flags and being like, oh no, it's okay, like, it's not that big of a deal, or constantly like I said, kind of getting walked over and just showing back up. So there's that piece of really knowing who you are and drawing a line around who you are, because obviously not every relationship you should stay in. And a lot of times, especially when we're talking about conscious partnership, it can be misperceived, like, oh, you're not happy, just focus on yourself. It doesn't have anything to do with the other person, and it can be misperceived that you should stay in an unhappy relationship because it's more opportunity for growth. So that's where I feel like setting boundaries and being like, this is what I deserve, this is the kind of relationship that I want to be in, and knowing when to leave and when to continue on, because not everybody's for you. So I don't know if you guys have any thing to touch on when it comes to boundaries, but I feel like it's a really big topic.
Yeah. I think, also too, for me, I remember when I started my self-love healing journey in the beginning, I left my partnership. I was like, this doesn't serve me, peace. And yes, the relationship wasn't serving me, but I don't know if I left because that was a power decision, or just because I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. Right. And so I think, when you're in a relationship, make the decision from a place of power. Do enough work on yourself where you know, oh yeah, this isn't for me. Or what could happen beautifully is like you're working on yourself and your partner looks at you and he's like, or she's like, oh man, like I want to do the work too. And then who knows what can come out of that, you know, as you do the work on yourself. And so I think that's what it comes down to too, is like, yeah, if you're obviously like in something abusive, like please get out. But if this is something where you can learn a few things about yourself, then make the decision when you're in your power.
Boom. That's exactly it. That was exactly what I was going to say. Also, the more that you step into your power, the more that you do this inner work, you're going to get more connected to your intuition. Yeah. You're going to start putting your heart in charge instead of your mind. Mm-hmm. And then these questions on, is this the right partner for me? You will start to feel into the answers and listen to your intuition on if they're not, or when is the right time to kind of leave. Now, this can get really tricky. And this was a great lesson that I had to go through this past year, where my programs were telling me that Ellie wasn't the right person for me. So this is where it gets really tricky, because here on one side, I'm saying, trust your intuition, feel into your heart. But then on the other side, you've got, well, if your programs are running, yes, you're not feeling from your heart. You're trapped in your mind. You're running a program. You might even be running an emotional program, and you might be feeling it in your body. So at that point in one's own journey, they have to understand that even feelings might not be communication from your soul. Some feelings are. Intuition definitely is. Some feelings are. Sometimes, like I've had these moments where I've really connected to Ellie's soul, and I understand our mission on earth is, and it was supposed to be together. And I have to trust that feeling that I have, which is super deep. But then the feelings on the surface, they will convince me, they will disconnect my heart from her, then my mind will start running and saying she isn't the person who she says she is, which is a program I run for my childhood. They'll say a whole mirage of different things to convince me to not continue down this path with her. Well, why? Because if I keep going down this path with Ellie, it's going to lead to all of those programs, all of the self-sabotage, all of the relationship sabotage, we can call it. They'll all have to dissolve because they're going to be alchemized by my light. Well, all these programs, they are like anything else in the universe. They just want to survive. So if I see them as a program and I stop listening to them more, then they will dissolve. If I bring my love and my light to them, my awareness, they will transmute into love, and then they don't get to continue. So that's quite a deep talk about all that. But basically, trusting your intuition is really important, but just be aware that sometimes that feeling of maybe this person isn't right for me might be coming from your mind and might be coming from your programs. There might be pain in your heart, which is dictating that decision of yours or that feeling of yours. So it's like everything in life, it's very nuanced. It's not black and white. This duality of like, oh, it's either this way or this way. Yeah, we need to get rid of that. We need to understand that everything is nuanced, everything is complex, and everyone's individual experience is going to be unique to them. So trust your intuition if you're thinking that maybe this isn't the right partner for you, but become super aware. Am I running a program right now? Is this coming from a place of true, authentic power, or is this coming from some level of pain somewhere in my mind? Because finding that discernment is going to allow you to trust your higher self instead of your pain. Huge, huge, huge part of someone's journey when they go through that. The other thing I wanted to mention is you do not need a partner to go through exactly what we're talking about, but man, it helps. You really don't. You can do this work completely on your own. We'll listen to this podcast. We're talking about all this. Yes, it really, really helps reflecting back to you, but you don't need them. You don't need them at all. You can still walk the exact same path. You can still be with a partner that isn't into personal development at all. Just allow them to be the mirror. Use this as another added challenge of how you're going to get around your own soul's evolution. And as you go up and up and up, you might bring them with you. As you go up and up and up, you might fade away, or you might stay perfectly the same, and that's okay, whichever. But you don't need them. Again, this is like coming from another need place. You don't need them to be on this journey with you. You can 100% be a conscious partner in your partnership and not have your other partner reflecting anything back. It just takes a little bit more probably time and power, but everyone's different. You know, everyone's relationship is going to be unique. But if you do find a partner that is on this same page, it can be a fast track. And I can speak that from experience, but be warned, if you're looking for that, be careful what you wish for, because it is not what you watch in the Disney movies. It is not, and now you live happily ever after. It is just shots to the gut, shots to your heart, like constant reflection of, man, I've got more work to do. But in the moments in between, you get to see what true love actually is. And it's not rainbows and butterflies.
And you get what I've noticed is that we go through cycles and you get deeper and deeper. So it's almost like when we first started dating, we were very surface level. We still enjoyed each other's company. And then as we're bringing stuff up and as we're healing and going deeper, you are getting to experience such a deeper connection with this person, because you are getting closer to your own heart, and they're also getting closer to their heart. So it's just taking that experience and bringing more depth to it. And that's what's on the other. I mean, that's what's on the other side, even though, it is shitty. Like there's a lot of stuff that comes up and it's really painful. Like we're not saying it's all just like horrible. But there's just there's so much beauty. There's so much beauty in the process. And being reflected with your partnership is really helpful. But there's another point that I wanted to make too, was that of something that I used to get really nervous about was when like the spark was gone. Like, you know, where they're not like as into you, or they're like not as all about you, or want to do things for you, or you don't have that connection. And it used to really, really freak me out. And I used to get into control mode, where I'm like, okay, how do I find this connection with this person? Usually like it meant like, okay, they like physical stuff, you know, like what can I give of myself to find this connection? And I've learned recently that I almost, like, everybody has their different states. There's states that I'm in that I'm more disconnected from myself. Not everybody is perfect all the time, so we can't expect somebody to be. But I've started seeing these times as moments to go back into myself, because it's easy to get lost in a relationship when it's perfect, right? When everything's going great, when you're both open and connected and loving and it's beautiful. It's hard not to get lost in it and just want that all the time. And so I've started to appreciate the cycles of a relationship, of like, okay, there's times where there is some disconnection because, okay, now I'm feeling like I really want to go back to our connection state. I really want to go back to where we were because I love the feeling. And then taking a moment into myself, like what that's coming from, like a place of lack. And so I get to, because I don't have the distraction from this beautiful partner doing everything perfectly, I get time to really go into myself and be that for myself. Because sometimes it's easy to lose that. Once you're there, I mean, once it's like a constant like ebb and flow. Once you start really doing the work, and once you get over something, it's not like you'll ever mess up again or fall back into the unconscious patterns, but they become less, but they are still there. And so it's just getting to have that time when you don't have those distractions, to really focus on yourself and like, where am I coming from? So not being as scared from that like spark being gone for a little bit or however long, seeing it as an opportunity to see what comes up in you, really.
Yeah, the ego loves to label things like this is good and this is bad, when in reality there's beauty in everything and all is perfect as it is. And finding that gem even in the hard times is when you get out of that, you're like, damn, that was tough, but we did that and I did that. Truly, that's why
Yes.
this journey is it ain't no joke, but man, the evolution of it is wild. It's wild. I think we could talk about probably five more hours on this, but we got to wrap this one up. Madison, if you guys want to work with Madison for 3 or 4 months one-on-one, set up a free consultation with her at masterselfuniversity.com. Danny and I also do consultations as well. So if you want to work with either of us, please visit masterselfuniversity.com and subscribe, rate, review, share, comment, anything to help get this podcast out. We appreciate it so much. Until next time, thank y'all for being here. We love you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Much love.
All right,
Bye.
thank you guys.